Filipino fishermen spent nearly 2 months trapped aboard a fishing vessel in America. This is a crazy story of modern day slavery, at least in my opinion. Filipino fishermen say after contracting with the fishing company, they were stuck inside a fishing vessel docked at the Westport Marina for nearly 2 months. Commercial albacore fishing was what brought dozens of fishermen to the United States from the Philippines. They agreed to work a contract with a U.S. fishing company in the summer of 2023. The grueling days were supposed to be worth it for them. The value of the US dollar versus the Philippine peso, that's what was on our mind, even though it was hard work. I wanted the US dollars, I don't care how hard it is, said one of the fishermen. After spending time at sea, fishermen contracted by US-based McAdams Fish and its Filipino counterpart docked in Westport. There were 24 fishermen all in across multiple boats. U.S. laws does not require that foreign fishermen have visas to work aboard fishing vessels owned by U.S. companies. But once the boat docked, the men were told if they get off the boats, they would be arrested, fined, and deported. The men ended up being stuck in Westport for months. The company didn't pay their promised wages, and they had no access to dry land. Communication with their families hinged on sporadic and unreliable internet access. Eventually, relatives back in the Philippines were able to get help for their loved ones trapped aboard the fishing vessels. Federal authorities stepped in December of 2023, freeing all 24 men. Most opted to return home to the Philippines, but 6 decided to stay and seek justice. The 6 men are now known as the United Six. According to a fishing vessel tracking site, the ships that the men were all stuck on were about 85 feet long and 26 feet wide. On top of being trapped, the men were never paid. They say their initial retainers were paid piecemeal to their families. However, when they were docked in Westport, they had a handler from McAdams Fish bring them food. They were told the food charges were coming out of their pay. They also said they were charged for the bait and the fuel that were used when they were out fishing. All of this was never explained or written in their contracts. An inspector with the International Transport Workers Federation said he's seen this kind of thing happen frequently in Hawaii, but never in Washington State. The employers use this as a threatening tactic. They use the mechanisms of the immigration system to oppress these guys, threaten them that they'd be sent back home, referring to the fishermen's inability to step off the boats without visas. If you raise the issues, you will be deported back to your own country, and no one's going to confirm that their wages have not been paid. If they step off, they'd be subject to fines and arrest. McAdams Fish sent a statement denying all allegations. The 6 men currently work full-time jobs and are sending money back to the Philippines to support their families. No word yet on the timeline for the results of the investigation into McAdams Fish by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, of course, there's 2 sides to every story, and McAdams Fish is denying everything, as you would expect. But for some reason, these guys were stuck on a boat, multiple boats, for 2 months. Why weren't the boats fishing? There's a lot of questions around that. Obviously, the boats are not making any money if they're tied to the dock. But not getting paid. They fished for 6 weeks. Was one of the statements I saw. They fished for 6 weeks. They didn't get paid for that. But the worst thing is they were treated so poorly. There's very few guarantees in fishing, but you do expect to be treated fairly. I didn't know that people could fish in America without a visa. Seems strange to me, but not being able to get off the boat once you hit the dock kind of sucks. But we've seen this before with tugboats and container ships where people have been abandoned in America and they can't get off the boat. If they get off the boat, then they go to jail, or they stay on the boat and feel like they're already in jail. It's a terrible situation to be in, that's for sure. Hopefully the authorities can get to the bottom of this, and if it's true, McAdam fish get all that they deserve. Especially whoever was in charge of this situation. They should be ashamed of themselves if it's true. Alright guys, there it is. As always, thanks for watching. If you're new here and you like these kind of videos, don't forget to subscribe before you leave. And I'll see you on the next one.